Hi, right corner.
Oh, well. Hi. We meet again. We meet again.
Hey.
Let's see. What is it here? Purity and grape culture. Toxic masculinity. Okay. Toxic femininity. What about just toxic people?
What about them?
That's what it is. They're just toxic people. Why do you have to...
No, when we look at toxic masculinity, essentially these are traits that have been prescribed to masculinity through society.
Like what
And-
traits?
Stoicism, stoicism, competitiveness, aggression, dominance, homophobia, and misogyny.
Also,
Okay, let's
lack
start
of
with-
accountability and mental health.
Okay. So let's start with stoicism. Why is that bad?
Stoicism can be very harmful to men because they are essentially told that they can't be expressive of other emotions other than anger. So it leads to lack of vulnerability. It also solidifies that anger is the only acceptable emotion, which makes them emotionally less intelligent, unable to develop meaningful relationships not only with women but with other men.
Do you also
Okay.
think that it like plays into that whole if somebody breaks into my house, I'm gonna go down and fight them, even if I don't know if they're armed or not, kind of thing? Like, oh, I need to protect my girl, kind of thing.
I think that's more aggression and dominance than stoicism.
Okay, yeah.
So, would you rather have a man that is in control of his emotions or a man that reacts to every emotion that he feels?
I don't think you can necessarily always control your emotions. I think you can have healthy coping mechanisms or
I
healthy
think emotional
outlets
control
of
is
your
different than
emotions.
repression.
Yeah.
But Stoicism doesn't teach repression.
It does.
Stoicism is the endurance of pain or hardship without the display of feelings and without complaint. But it doesn't mean that you're not acknowledging those emotions. It doesn't mean that you are not filtering those emotions. It just means that you're not reacting to those emotions.
Wait, not in the context though. I think people definitely tell people not to react to certain things in a certain way. Like if you cry in front of your family, you're weak, or if you show emotion in a certain scenario, like even at a funeral, sometimes you will be like, "Oh, you're just like a pussy" or something. Like there's definitely that aspect of you should have an emotional intelligence level to not share your emotions at all. That's I think more of what we're talking about. It's like they're shutting it down completely, not any expression.
But I would say that that person in this hypothetical you're speaking about is a toxic person, but that's not what Stoicism teaches. It doesn't say that you're...
I think you're just going to stoicism specifically for the black and white definition when we've given it a lot of context. If you want to read more about this, these 4 traits that I've given you are not of my own conclusion. It's literally from the American Psychology Association.
I hear you, but then my question is, who's to so these psychologists deem these traits, which are neutral traits, the homophobia. I mean, what if a girl's taught homophobia? Is that toxic masculinity if she's taught homophobia from her homophobic parent?
No,
That's
the
toxic
distinction that
masculinity.
I'm trying to make
That's another-
to you, which I've already made, is that these have been traits that have been prescribed to masculinity by society.
But women can still attribute them, definitely. It still can be learned and attributed by women to have toxic masculine traits.
So when we look at
Well, see,
masculinity
that
in
doesn't make sense.
general,
Like in that-
a lot of masculine people have this kind of machismo idea of what this is what it means to be masculine. And if we look at the stereotypes of people who are gay, you can see that they stereotypically are portrayed as more feminine, more weak. And that's why these men have this idea of homophobia, because if you portray these feminine qualities, you must be gay.
But what I believe is happening, what I see is happening is people are trying to actively change what it's traditionally meant to be masculine in the West for hundreds of years. They're trying to change fundamentally what it means to be masculine.
I mean, yeah.
Yes, masculinity does need to be redefined. I think
doesn't.
redefining
But that's the-
masculinity is one of the few one of the ways that we can actually take a step towards eliminating rape culture within Western society.
And right, Corner, you still recognize that these aspects of toxic masculinity can be attributed positively as well. Like, you can still have stoicism in a healthy way, to a certain extent. It's all about the extent and the context and the connotation. Like, if we're just teaching kids to like be tough. Oh, bug just flew in my mouth. Sorry. Oh God. Anyways, we can still teach like kids to be tough, but if we teach it in a toxic way, it's a way that's like, don't be vulnerable ever. Don't share your emotions. And
there you go.
If you feel pain,
but
don't
there you go.
that.
There you go. Perfect. I don't disagree with you. You just said these traits are not necessarily inherently toxic, but if you teach it in a toxic way, I agree with you. But then when you just say toxic masculine traits, it shows it as if all of these traits are inherently toxic.
Wait, no. The way they're taught is toxic, and the reason they're taught in a toxic way is due to the context of misogyny and masculinity. Like, that's the reason why they're interpreted in a toxic way.
The way these behaviors have been taught and essentially bestowed upon men and young boys is as a whole harmful. And so that's what we mean about being toxic.
Not gonna lie, that bug was kind of good. It kind of bussin'.
Sorry, what?
I said that bug was kind of bussin'.
Oh my God, Kay. Aaron, are you there?
Suck me, I suck back.
Oh yeah, still here.
Okay, great.
So what would you say to, masculinity is having qualities or appearances traditionally associated with men.
Yeah.
When we talk about traditions, we talk about whatever culture that we are in. So we're talking about Western culture, specifically the United States. What's happening is people want to change what those traditions are that deem what it means to be a masculine man. My question to you is, what about for the people that say that wearing nail polish and feminine dresses is toxic, and displaying emotion over display of emotion is also toxic? What would you say to those people?
I would say expand. Yeah, tell me how that is harmful.
Yeah, you have to add some qualifying features of harm to that. Like, for example, how is nail polish harmful to anyone? Exactly. Or you can even make it extremely rudimentary and say, like, how is it harmful for men to, for example, let their hair grow long?
I mean, I've had acrylics before, and the only thing it hurt was my ability to type.
Yeah, that'll hurt. And because so the quality, you have to have a qualifier, and that qualifier for toxic masculinity is harm. And specifically, harm to others and harm to self.
I don't know, I heard about 60% of that. I don't know if that's just me.
He's just saying you need the qualifiers of harm, because if you want to talk about toxic masculinity, we can point to a lot of harm that these behaviors exhibit, not only to oneself, but to others.
Yep. Okay. So when you look at a whole,
when you look at, for example, the rate of unaliving for men, and then we can see that it's men's lacking of expressing their emotions and their lacking of skill sets and very basic skill sets to seek out help and resources as part of stoicism, we can see the harm and we can trace it.
So wait a second. You're saying that all of men's unaliving is mostly due to toxic masculinity?
Yep.
I would say the majority.
Because they
how do you know that? But like, substantiate that. Like, how?
I would say it would be safe to assume the majority.
Psychiatric Association, as well as National Suicide Hotline, in terms of how they are watching men seek the barriers into when they do. Barriers, for the sake of just talking about it, we'll call it, the barriers are self-inflicted, but it's not their fault. Self-inflicted means that there's an internal strife or conflict going on.
Okay, I hear you, but you're saying like the majority of this awful thing, which is anyone unaliving themselves, but we're talking about men unaliving rates. You're saying the majority of that is because of toxic masculinity.
Oh,
Yeah, we can look at that. One second, Gay. We can look at that on a couple different qualifiers. Typically, when we look at different results of genders, women are twice as likely to experience depression than men. And women actually attempt suicide at twice the rate of men. But men are actually more successful at committing suicide because of the means they choose to commit suicide, which is typically firearms, a more violent method, which is seen as masculine. Men are also 3.5 times more likely than women to die by suicide.
Yeah, but
And
I'm not comparing men's unaliving rates to women's. I'm asking, how can we know
But that comparison is important to understand that why men are 3.5 times more likely to die by suicide than women, even though women experience depression at twice the rate, and that they're actually more successful in committing suicide. All of those can have traces back to toxic masculinity, which relates to stoicism, as well as choosing more violent means to kill themselves.
Yeah, I think it's definitely about the stigma around men's mental health. I think men, a lot today especially, really make fun of therapy and say just go to the gym. Like I've heard that a lot lately, that they kind of disregard mental health for the sake of masculinity and seeming strong, because they think physical strength or their portrayal of power is more important than their actual feelings.
Okay, so I want to go, let's backtrack.
Do you agree with that? Do you agree with that?
Well, not 100%, no, because what's the definition of therapy? It's treatment intended to relieve or heal disorder. I think you guys are specifically talking about talk therapy, like when you go to a psychologist.
Well, yeah, they're making fun of talk therapy.
Well, there's many forms of therapy. There's physical therapy, there's emotional therapy, and when you're talking about emotional therapy, there's many different forms of it. You have meditation, you can have religion, you can have faith, you can have talk therapy, you can have a gym.
Are you sawing down a tree?
That's not me.
Oh, sorry. That must be. There's someone's. That's outside my window. That's how good my mic is.
I was gonna say, if you're sawing down a tree, I'll take the trunk.
The window is not even open.
But
when we're talking about men seeking therapy, we're just talking about access to the service.
Yeah, well, that's
all we're talking about.
But you're minimizing that service possibly being the gym.
I'm sorry, Kenzie. That's actually just me powering up my vibrator.
Okay, stop. You always get yourself banned.
Don't say the word.
Banana, I mean.
Well, so
sorry,
as a therapist myself, I'm not minimizing anything. We're just talking about the broad range of services out there.
Yeah, but the only services I think you're referencing are talk therapy, but there's many other forms of therapy.
I know.
I mean, I think I still will make fun of meditation. I still think that's to an extent. Like, if somebody told them to meditate, they'd be like, "Nah, I'm still going to the gym." Like, I still think to an extent, therapy as a widespread method of caring about your mental health is disregarded by men who consider themselves to be masculine.
Yeah. So we're talking about mental health and therapy. That's what we're talking about.
Okay. So again, the gym or physical exertion could be playing a sport.
Gym is not therapy. Gym can be therapeutic, but it is not therapy.
Correct.
I really don't think lifting a weight is going to unpack your childhood trauma.
But wait,
I really don't.
If therapy is the treatment intended to relieve or heal a disorder, how is that not, if it's treating?
Because therapy requires some goals and specific actions to use specific results. I can agree with you that going to the gym feeling of like a dopamine release, so you feel good at the end of the gym. It can also be a healthy habit for someone to get into, but it would only be used in combination with other forms of therapy, not individually.
Okay, but you brought up therapy because you're saying that, minimizing mostly talk
right
therapy.
Corner, like like you're a men's right activist. I feel that you like rest bio.
Me put MRA in my bio. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
like, there's a lot of
Wait,
things.
right, Corner,
Men's
right,
rights.
Corner,
I think you even put men's rights activists. Like, come
Wait,
on.
right corner, do you not care
Now
about
you're taking it back.
rights? Are you like,
Well, I would consider myself anti-fascist, but I wouldn't say I'm part of Antifa. I would consider myself advocating for men's rights, but I wouldn't necessarily classify myself as an MRA. I would say that Black Lives Matter, but I don't align myself with the organization BLM. So it's like two things can be true at once.
so wait, what about MRA do you not associate with to where you cannot just call yourself an MRA?
Well, I'm not part of an MRA organization. I don't know anyone
We're
that's
not
like,
saying that you are, but most men's rights activists, like that's their foundation. And I feel that you and I have had these discussions.
do you not advocate
Why
for
why
men's
would I call you? Why would I not call you an MRA if
I mean,
you hadn't told me you're an MRA?
I mean, I would hope that all of us here advocate for men's rights activists. Like, I would hope
So
that you are.
you-
And
There's some okay. So are you a men's rights activist? Do you think that men are being oppressed in today's society?
well, when you look at it, there's
Let's say yes
areas
or no.
where. Well, hold on a second. I'm advocating for men's rights. Like it's men's. There are things that are happening to men in our society that are affecting their mental health. There's men's unaliving
Wow.
rates
So now
higher.
you're talking about mental health and men, saying that. So do you
Yeah.
think there is a stigma? There is a stigma against men regarding mental health and seeking services regarding it.
Well, I didn't say much about seeking services regarding it, but I think the reason for men's mental health that I would say is different for the reasons that you would say. You would say it's because of toxic masculinity. I would say it's because a lot of it's due to toxic feminism.
Ooh,
Okay, so toxic feminism or toxic femininity?
No, mostly toxic feminism.
So there is no such thing as toxic feminism.
So when they say kill them, and they say things like that,
There are many types of feminism. There's Marxist feminism, there's radical feminism, there's intersectional feminism, there is choice feminism. There's no such thing as toxic feminism.
well, there is now.
There isn't. It's not a movement. There are no tenets regarding it. I don't think you can point to anything that shows me a group of women who identify as toxic feminism.
I'm
Right.
sorry, there was a fire truck going by. That was just the sound of right corner's argument burning to the ground.
So what happens if let's say a woman, right?
I think you're trying to conflate toxic masculinity with toxic femininity.
No.
And if we look at toxic femininity, we have to see what behavioral traits have been prescribed to women from the
So
patriarchy.
wait a second. What happens if you have a woman that says all men are bad, K all men, and I'm a feminist? What would
I
you
say
say
per.
then? Huh?
I say per.
Oh, so you agree with all men are bad and K all
You're
men?
just pivoting. So I
I'm
would like
asking
you to
you a
answer.
question.
I would like you to answer my question first. Is there a stigma towards men seeking mental health services and being expressive in their emotions? Is there this stigma?
No, but this is a loaded question. Trying to
How
get
is it
me
loaded?
because you're asking me a loaded question to force me into the narrative that you're trying to say, and I'm giving you.
You
other
can say
reasons.
no.
And you can we'll give you time to explain your side. We're not just gonna like paint
You
with
haven't given
narrative.
me any
You can
time to explain
it.
my side.
That's the contention that I'm making, right corner, is that we're having this discussion that we recognize that men have been conditioned into society where anger is the only emotion that they can express comfortably and without any type of prejudice or stigma.
Who teaches
And
that? That anger's the only.
These are the tenets of toxic masculinity, which is why aggression is one of the tenets. We can look at a lot of examples saying boys will be boys. Especially when we talk to young men, don't be a girl. That's inherently misogynistic, telling young men that the worst thing that they can be in life is a girl.
Right corner, do you not think that it's like kind of glamorized responding with violence to men, like being powerful, physically strong? I think that's definitely glamorized. Like if somebody insults you or attacks your pride, you should fight them or beat them up. Like, oh, you're gonna let them say that to you? I definitely think to an extent that is definitely
Yeah, but here's the
glamorized.
thing. You guys would all want a powerful man when it's convenient for you. God forbid you're in a situation, you need to call the police, someone's robbing a house or something of that sort. You're going to want a...
So
Wait, it's not about
you're
power,
going
it's
to want a
about-
powerful man.
I
You
would
only
like
want
to
it when
address
it's
that.
convenient.
No, I would like to address that. If you
Okay.
are telling me that I need protection from men, you are saying that I will get protection for that one day. I need men to be like they have been prescribed to be in society. That man will protect me for one day. But if we teach men not to be violent and express dominance and aggression towards women and other men, that will protect me for life.
Also, if I'm being SA, do I want a gun or do I want a strong man?
I don't know. It depends on the situation. If there's no gun present, and
I-
there's a
I
strong
want a
man there that
sword.
can protect-
I'd take the gun.
Okay. So,
So you are giving me, I'll give you a fish for a day, and I'm saying, no, I want to teach, excuse me, I want to have a society where I can fish myself for life.
Okay,
And that's
can-
where your logic fails.
can you imagine before World War II if we taught all men to like...
Why are you going back to prior to World War II?
Because if we had a society of feminized men prior to World War II, all of Europe would be speaking German right now. All of
You're just doing an appeal to tradition fallacy, essentially saying that because we, and again, I don't think you can really correlate these two talking points, because if we look at men who went to war, one of like the ways for them to experience release and less stress was to dress up like women and to be more effeminate rather than this machismo masculine ideology. And if we look at the person who even coined the term toxic masculinity, he used that to describe his militant father.
Okay.
You just can't ignore the harms, right, Corner?
But
And
wait a
these
second,
harms
so-
affect men.
Who's this person that coined toxic masculinity?
Shepherd Bliss.
Okay, and RC just coined the term toxic feminism.
Yeah, we be getting
What are the
this point.
what are the tenets of toxic feminism?
Again, I ask the question: if a feminist that says I'm a feminist and all men
That's
are
not.
bad,
If
all
you
men
are
are, I'm a
going
feminist,
if you are
all men
going to
are
coin a term and an idea, you need to have tenets.
What do you say to a feminist that says I'm a feminist, all men are bad? Is that not toxic feminism?
That's not. If
So what is that?
You're coining it. You need the framework, my guy, not me.
What is that? When a feminist says all men are bad, K, all men, what is that?
We are challenging men in their
Why
masculinity.
can't you answer the question?
I am answering it. We are challenging men in their masculinity, their oppression, and their dominance. To have some introspection, to be
To
critical.
say all men are bad, that's the criticism?
Wait, do you think
Yeah.
that
If we
generalize
look at
all men?
masculinity, this is a trait. These are traits that are reflective of men.
Oh,
So
so
yes,
you
we
think that
want them
was
to redefine masculinity.
by saying we're all
Because
bad.
these traits are causing not only harm to men, but extreme harm to women.
So it's okay to say all men are bad. You're advocating for that.
right corner?
Yeah.
Do you think that's literal?
Yeah,
do you
really.
think that phrase is literal?
Wait,
And
did
what do
the-
you think is the purpose of that phrase?
Did this professional
So
health
what you're doing,
advisor
so
just
what
say
you're
yes?
doing, right corner, what
I
you're
wanna-
doing here is you're doing kill the messenger, rather than actually examining how men behave in society with any kind of introspection, with any kind of critical thinking or self-evaluation to how your masculinity affects other people.
Yeah, you're really just saying I disagree with this one approach, therefore the whole movement.
But this is not an approach. This is
And
an
none of the
extremely
points that-
toxic, damaging thing, and that's
Wait, it's an
leading to
approach.
men's
No,
unaliving
no,
rates
what
too.
you are doing is toxic, and it is actually very
Really?
reflective of your privilege. Yes.
Me
Wait, right corner.
defending.
In order to say that it was just a bad approach, you'd have to argue that you know the reason as to why the phrase KAM came about, and that it was not productive, and it didn't have anything to do with reform of men's mental health and accountability for their behavior. You'd have to argue that.
Really? So you're advocating for KAM? Like you're justifying that?
Me personally, yeah.
Wow. Okay, guys. Good conversation. It
I
speaks
think
volumes
you need
about
to
who you are. It
ask.
speaks
I think
volumes
you
about
need
who
to
you are.
ask right corner why two men in this debate. Of course, he's gonna dip because he doesn't have a rebuttal.
Like, also, that was just me. I'm sure Kenzie, like, do you like the phrase KAM, or do you personally disagree with it? Because I think you could disagree with it.
I think it's in, like, I don't know too much about it, but I don't think it looks good.
I mean, yeah, I definitely get that, but I think it's something that's drastic enough to get people's attention. I think that's
I think it is. I think it is very radical. So I would say it would fall under the tenets of radical feminism, which I do agree with some of those tenets. Like, I will admit, I do think women are better than men. But I mean, I agree with some of the Marxist feminism tenets. Like, I think a lot of capitalistic ideas have also led to this system of oppression of women.
Yeah, for real. He just wasn't answering, and he would rather die on the hill that I hate this one phrase said by this one person in the live, not anybody else. Therefore, I'm not going to debate any of them.
Well,
and he couldn't answer what he thought about the origins.
No, he ignores rape culture. He says he coined toxic feminism, but doesn't have any tenets. Like, he's so unresearched, and he's literally, it's just like, he just reeks of privilege. He's gone unexamined for so long.
His wallet's empty. Ain't no coins.
Mario's getting that coin before right corner.
Don't leave Luigi out of the conversation. What the fuck?
Oh man, hit dog will holler. Sorry, Aaron.
Yeah, it's a soft spot for Aaron.
Like, I love Mario, but Luigi's my bro. Like, you can't cut him out like that. Come on now.
I wanted to ask him, like, why we have two men in this discussion agreeing with these phrases, and yet right corner is like so in a tizzy. Like, is it really like hit dog will holler?
Let me say this as the quote professional advisor that he called me, that all men are trash. Done deal.
Her. But like, he literally couldn't. I was just asking over and over for him to like substantiate. If he hates that phrase, what does he hate about it? Because all he can argue is the stigma of it. He never said like the origins of it, what the intention was, why he thinks it's harmful. Because he's trying to make a connection that we are intending to cause harm with that phrase. We are intending to just shit on men and not take any accountability and not do anything positive. It's just intentionally shitting on men with nothing productive. And that was just not the case. And he didn't want to answer that question to get to that core of why he kept repeating it over and over and over again.
Yeah, I think if anything, it was just meant to be a radical statement to get men's attention.
For real. But that took too many brain cells to get to.
That's why it's difficult to debate with him, is that he stonewalls, he pivots, and then he runs when he thinks he's kind of got some, like, gotcha moment. See, look, he's even in the comments, sad, bro. Like, why are you here?
Don't act on it. You can be sad in the comments, but don't act on it.
If you didn't want to continue the discussion, you left, and yet you're here saying comments like you want to continue. You want to continue only if you don't have to, like, actually answer questions, if you're actually challenged in your opinion.
Wait, no. Don't even acknowledge that, because if he's going to be sad, he can be sad in the comments, but he's not part of the organization that cares about men's feelings, so we don't have to give a shit. And he's not a men's rights activist because he can't fully support the organization.
I swear, he had MRA in his bio, and I feel like he knows it and he just won't admit it.
Yeah, more like manipulators rights activists.
Ooh, I like that word. Manipulative rights activist.
Yeah, look, everyone's saying he did.
Dang. He got caught in a lie.
Yeah, someone, if you're in my Discord, and I don't know why anyone would happen to have a screenshot of his profile when he had it in there, like, please drop it in there.
Well, what's funny is, like, I've come